everyone, so today I am here to do a continuation of a series I started last summer, and then I just stopped doing them, and I was like, I'm not going to do them anymore, and now I'm like, I want to do them again, so we're kind of playing catch up. We're probably going to have 2 this month, and that is reviewing classics, reviewing 3 classics. Basically, I got this idea from Books on Lala, who used to do a thing of like reviewing 3 thrillers. I started reading classics in 2020, and I read a whole bunch of them all at once, and I was like, I want to just like make a series where I talk about the classics that I'm reading. And then again, I kind of fell off doing it, so I'm playing catch up. I'm going to kind of be ignoring some classics that I did read that I just don't have a lot to say about. Like, I read Master and Margarita, I read Shirley, and then I read a couple things by John Milton from my like master's class like this past semester. And I'm just kind of going to be ignoring those. I'm going to be talking about books I actually have stuff to say about. So today we have 3 pretty big books that a lot of people are always asking me to talk about. So yeah, first up we have Don Quixote by Cervantes. This is a book that I read for my Patreon book club. If you guys didn't know, I do host a Patreon book club where we read classics every single month. So we read that in, I think, December through February. We took 3 months to read it because it's such a huge book. And then I also have Brothers Karamazov, or the Karamazov Brothers by Fyodor Dostoevsky, and this is one that I read last summer, I think in August or July. And yeah, I feel like I read it and then just literally never talked about it again because everyone's always like, oh my god, did you read Brothers Karamazov? And I'm like, yeah guys, I did. Did you miss that? So I'm here to talk about it again. And then I have Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky, which I just read in February. So we're kind of all over the board time-wise, but I think this makes sense in my head. So yeah, let's get into it. I think I'm going to start with Don Quixote because I surprisingly have the least amount to say about this book. So yes, like I said, I did read this for my Patreon book club. As you can see, I have lots and lots of annotations. If you're interested in my annotations on my Patreon, I have videos, like everything's always saved on Patreon, so even if you join later, you can still go back and like look at stuff. And you can actually, I did like flip throughs of all of my annotations. So you guys can like literally sit there and read them. But Don Quixote is a piece of Spanish translated literature. As you guys know, I love translated literature. So I was really excited for this one. I picked up this copy like ages ago, like before I read this. This was my longest standing book on my TBR by far. And I was just a little bit terrified to read it, but I was super excited. So I was really excited to finally be picking it up. And unfortunately, this just kind of was meh to me, which I hate that. I hate when a book is just meh. Like, I would rather absolutely hate a book than just give it 3 stars. But unfortunately, this was a 3-star for me. I thought it started out very, very strong, and I was really, really enjoying it at the very beginning. Oh my god, I'm doing so badly at reviewing this. If you guys don't know what Don Quixote is about, Don Quixote follows a man named Don Quixote, who basically, he reads like a lot of chivalry romances and goes insane. And he thinks he is a knight who is off fighting like mystical creatures and dragons and saving people, but in reality he's like fighting windmills and like just attacking random people for no reason, and there's a lot of people that you meet along the way. This book has some really, really interesting social commentary. I particularly enjoyed some of the conversations about women because I wasn't like expecting them. Like, there's some really shitty things about women in this, but it also does go into like some like pretty powerful women. I thought this book was hilarious, especially towards the end where we're starting to really break the 4th wall, like in the 2nd volume, because this is technically like 2 books that we put together to be one nowadays. It was published as 2 separate books, but in the 2nd one, like literally Don Quixote finds the book Don Quixote. And it's very trippy and it's very like breaking the 4th wall, which I love. I'm a big Shakespeare nerd, and every single time like there's a show or a book with a character breaking the 4th wall, I just love it now. But yeah, so it was a lot of fun. Like, again, I think this is definitely for someone who really loves fantasy. Like if you're a really big fantasy reader and you kind of want to try out classics, I think you'd really enjoy this. It's got a lot of adventure. It's got a lot of like, you meet characters for a little while and then they're kind of gone forever. You know, they come in, they tell their story, they serve their purpose, and then they're gone. And mostly we just follow Don Quixote and Panza. I was checking what his name was, Sancho Panza. Who they're just kind of partners in crime. I did think that this was a really interesting look at like psychology and like the psyche, I guess, of this time. Again, it was really like I knew that this book was a huge, like it's considered the first ever modern novel, so I knew it was huge and super influential, but I didn't realize how kind of progressive it was going to be for the time period, because this was published in what, the 1600s, I think? Like early 1600s? Yeah. And yeah, it like goes into psychology and like the psyche and everything of Don Quixote, because again, he goes insane. I keep doing this because as you go, you kind of realize he's not really insane. But yeah, I enjoyed those parts of it. I really enjoyed the conversations in this book, but like overall, I found it way too long. It does not need to be this long of a book. Very, very repetitive. I'm also a person who I literally was like, Kate, why did you think you were gonna love this book so much? I don't like episodic things. I don't like TV shows that are episodic. I don't like short stories. I don't like short story collections. So I was like, why did I think I was going to like the book that is like known for kind of creating the episodic narrative? I don't know why I thought I was going to like it. It's very episodic, it's very repetitive, and also, again, like I mentioned, it kind of has that, what I think of as a middle grade trope of like meeting 700 characters along the way who are there for a chapter and then they go away forever, and like you never hear about them again, and you never like see any of their consequences or them affecting the characters at all. I hate that trope. It's one of the reasons I can't read middle grade much anymore, is because I hate when that happens. It's really annoying to me, because I am such a character-driven person, I feel like. I don't like just meeting a character for 2 seconds and then them leaving. So, yeah. I did really enjoy our characters who we stayed with, Don Quixote and Pancho. I think Panza. Pancho? Who's Pancho? Pancho? Is that Emperor's New Groove? Panza. I really enjoyed those two characters and the couple of characters from like Don Quixote's like life, and also of course the historian towards the end of the book. I thought like a lot of things were great about this, but overall my actual enjoyment of this book was depleted by the fact that I was exhausted. It was so repetitive and so long and just unnecessarily so. So unfortunately, I did end up giving this a 3-star. But I had a really good time reading it, especially again because it was from my book club, and I really enjoy everything we read from my book club, even if I end up not liking the book. I think it's a good experience. So yeah, Don Quixote, 3 stars from me. I'm so sorry in advance to everyone who's going to comment telling me that I'm wrong. I'm sorry. Let's do another 3-star read, The Brothers Karamazov. So, this is, okay, a background for people who don't know me. The Idiot was the first Dostoevsky I read, and it is one of my favorite books of all time. You guys hear me talk about it all the time. So obviously I was super, super interested in picking up his other works. I don't know why I was so interested in this one versus his other things, like Crime and Punishment, but yeah, I don't know, I just immediately was like, I want to try Brothers Karamazov, which is kind of like, I feel like considered his masterpiece. But yeah, the Karamazov brothers. Brothers Karamazov, whatever you want to talk about. This is one of those books, I talked about this with Bleak House. This is one of those books that the synopsis that the back of the book gives you, and like every synopsis that like Goodreads or anything online gives you, doesn't happen until like halfway through the book. I was just sitting there like, God, when is it actually gonna happen? But basically it's about what? It's 3 sons, who are all sons to this kind of shitty guy, and all 3 sons are very, very different. You have like the one who's, I think it's the youngest son, who I really liked, who is like such like a good person, kind of, but then like he's a good person. I think he's in the church and everything. And then you have like the oldest son who's just like super shitty, and then you have the middle son. I think one of them's an academic. And yeah, what are their names? Dmitri, Ivan, and Alyosha. Alyosha is the youngest, and that's the one that I liked. I think Dmitri was the like shitty older brother, and I literally don't remember which one was Ivan. Like, I can't remember what Ivan's plotline was. That is how much this book stuck with me in the last... I did read it like 8 months ago, so cut me some slack. But they all kind of are living their own lives and everything, and then their father is killed. And they all have to kind of come together to figure out what happened, and then there's a whole court case and everything that comes afterwards, trying to figure out what happened. So my problem with this book, I don't know how, I've been told that I was wrong, but basically my problem with this book that I found so boring about it was I thought we already knew what had happened. Like, I read the first half, I knew who killed the father. And then the court case goes through everything all over again. So I was sitting here like, this is super boring. I thought we already know who killed him. Apparently we didn't. I don't know how I figured out who killed the father. Because I was like, it's so obvious that I literally knew. Like, I thought the author had told us. But apparently we didn't know that. But that definitely affected my reading experience. Because I was sitting here like, why are we going like for 400 pages over what just happened for the previous 300 pages? Like, it didn't make sense to me, because I was like, we already know what happened. We didn't know what happened. I don't know why I thought we like already knew this. I swear I didn't read anything. I didn't like spoil myself. I just was very convinced that we already knew what happened. And I was just so bored the entire court case scene. And I remember I talked about this book, and like a couple of people were like, you don't know what happened. Like, you do find out during the court. Like, it's obviously like you have a good idea what happened, but like the author doesn't tell us what happened. I was like, really? Like, I was really confused, because I swear I thought like Dostoevsky was like, this is what happened. Here you go. Apparently not. I don't know. Someone tell me if I'm right. Because yeah, that was why I didn't really enjoy this book, because we saw everything happen for 300 pages. We saw what happened with the father and the death and the murder, and then the court case happened, and it just recounted what we already knew, and I got really bored. I also am a person who I actually really, really like unlikable characters. I really like more realistic characters who are very flawed, but all of these, like the three brothers, I just really didn't care for. Again, Dmitri, I'm pretty sure, is like the older brother who was kind of a shithead, and I just like didn't really care for him. Like, I wish I I feel like we did get to know each of them pretty well, but Dmitri, I just didn't feel like he had much of a motive. Like, I just didn't really see why he was such a shitty person. Alyosha was the one that I liked the most. I know I'm saying his name wrong, I'm sorry. But I liked him the most, and again, I don't remember what Ivan was doing, if I'm completely honest. Like, I barely remember his part of this book, except for like, you know, like the important parts of it, and like, I don't remember who he was as a person, and like stuff before the father's death. But yeah, it was just one of those books that I apparently figured it out too quickly, and then it just read like a really boring court case to me, and I didn't really care for the characters very much. So I think that's why I ended up not really liking it that much. So again, I give this a 3 star. Sorry I am giving these amazing pieces of translated works, masterpieces of the craft, 3 stars. Talking about masterpieces of the craft, Crime and Punishment, I loved this. It was so good. I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars, just putting it out there now. So this, after I finished it, someone said, a couple people said actually, that this is considered like the first thriller. And I totally agree with that. Like, that is a great way of going into this book, because I feel like a lot of people are kind of like scared of Dostoevsky. You know, he's like this big Russian classicist and everything. And yeah, no, it's a thriller. Like, it's the first thriller. Basically we follow a man named Rosk. I called him Rosk in my things. Raskolnikov. Raskolnikov. I'm sorry, I'm not Russian. And basically at the beginning he is like planning a murder. And he is just like very, very like keyed into this murder, this idea of murder. I personally read Rosk as having either OCD or ADHD because of his like hyper fixations throughout this book. And obviously he's very, very hyper fixated on this murder, because as you figure out kind of later on in the book, Rosk actually has written several articles and things about crime and punishment, and kind of this idea of like who deserves to be punished, who deserves to be giving out the punishment, and what is a crime. Because kind of one of the ideas in this book that's talked about pretty early on is this idea of if one person is murdered and it benefits hundreds of people, is that a crime? And should that crime be punished? And I loved the theory and like intricate like theological conversations within this book. I just thought it was so fascinating, because it was literally like everything he said, I was like, on one hand, totally feel you on this, like 100% you make sense. But on the other hand, it's like we are talking about human lives in this situation. So it's very difficult, because what he's saying totally makes sense, and like it's very like easy for the reader to be like, no, you're right. And you kind of have to sit there and question yourself while watching this man like kind of go throughout his life and his story in this book with the idea that he's right about crime and punishment, and kind of you as the reader being like, he's not like, he's right, but he's not really right. Like he still lives in a society where there's crime and there's punishment, and this is how they're defined. But yeah, basically he's really hyperfixated on this murder, because he believes that if he murders this one woman, a lot of people will benefit from it, including himself, who he's very impoverished, and he's struggling, and his family's struggling, and like there's a whole plot line with his sister and her marriage and stuff, and he's like, if I murder this woman, everything will be better, and so he murders her, and from there, oh my god, it's so good. I loved it. The conversations surrounding guilt in this book were so good. It was fascinating to watch all of this happen. I loved it. I loved, like, well, let me see, what was... Yeah, so all of the blue tabs I have were guilt. Just, beautiful, like, passages and, like, quotes and, like, long scenes and stuff about guilt going through. And also, there were just so many different things where you're kind of watching Rosk and what he's kind of trying to decide, and then we literally like watch other people kind of what happens to them if they make a different decision than him. Like, you know, we watch another person like murder someone, and like what happens when he lets the guilt get to him and all of that, and it was fascinating. The only problem with this book is I really didn't give a shit about his sister and that whole plot line. It felt very weird and very like choppy to me, because we'd be like having these long like beautiful passages and all of this like really intense like psychological kind of exploration of guilt and crime and punishment with Rosk, and just like these kind of fever dreams he was having. And then all of a sudden we'd just be pulled out of that and basically like thrown into a Jane Austen novel. Like, it was very like jarring, especially because like Rosk as a character would change completely when those like switches happen, and I was just like, I don't like this. It doesn't work for me personally. So that was the only thing that I really didn't care for in this book, was those scenes. But yeah, oh my god, I really, really enjoyed this. It was so good. And again, I will say, I found this and Brothers Karamazov, to be honest, super accessible. So many people always ask me like about classics and like where to start and everything now, and I'm like, I don't know. But I will say Dostoevsky, I personally found really, really highly accessible and easy to read and just fun. Because again, I would classify this as a thriller. Like, if you like thrillers, you might like this. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed this. Highly, highly recommend it, especially if you really like books that make you sit there and just like question your morals and like humanity. I enjoy those. So yeah, I give this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. And yes, so these are the 3 classics that I am going to be talking about in today's video. I hope you guys all enjoyed this 3 classics review, and definitely tell me, they're all falling, they're way too big. And tell me down in the comments below if you have read these, what you thought about them, and obviously if I convinced you to pick any of these up, definitely tell me what you thought. But yeah, anyways, I love you all, and I'll see you all soon. Bye!